Free agency has taken place, and many players have found their new homes. How did each team do after 1 week? Let's recap. I made a tier list, so let's get started. Here we go. Oh, ha ha. Oh, I'm Alex's editor, and I like to with Alex's videos just as shit's starting to go well. Embarrassing, but let's try that again. We have 6 tiers for this video. I did originally plan on having like a, oh my god, they crushed it tier, but I didn't think that any team truly crushed it in free agency. So there won't be the hella good, no doubt tier that I originally planned on having. There are 6 tiers though. The first tier is the G stands for job well done tier. This is in honor of a joke by comedian Matthew Broussard about Dr. Grafenberg, who founded the G spot.
What a champ! Like, do you understand the difference between found the G spot and founded the G spot? That's a person. G stands for Grafenberg? Nah, bro. G stands for job well done.
This is for teams who made like 1 or 2 big moves, maybe a few smaller moves, but like critical moves to help fill some weaknesses. Like, they did a good job. The next tier below is called hella good, but I don't trust your team yet. This is for teams who really did crush it in transactions, but for one reason or another, I just don't trust it yet. The next tier down is the lukewarm as tier. I wouldn't be pissed if I was these fan bases, but the moves they made in free agency didn't exactly move the needle for me. It was either that, or they did make big moves, but those were to offset some of the big departures. The next tier down is the they better nail the draft tier. This is for teams who made some moves, but they still have glaring weaknesses that they have not addressed. Cleveland Browns. And the next tier down is no cap. This is for teams whose bad cap situation limited what they were able to do. And this is also my effort to learn Gen Z slang. And the last tier down is the Vince Lombardi from that one highlight reel. For the oh boys of the world, the what the f***s. Vince, take it away.
What the hell's going on out here?
Per usual, we're going in alphabetical order. We're going to start with the Arizona Cardinals, who are going to the lukewarm as tier. The Cardinals know they're rebuilding under first-year head coach Mike LaFleur. They released Kyler Murray and still owe him a lot of money, so they brought in human acoustic guitar Gardner Minshew in to back up Jacoby Brissett. Their running back room, it's merely okay to me, as Tyler Algier coming in to take valuable touchdowns away from James Conner isn't a big move. I've always found Tyler Algier underrated, but it still doesn't move the needle for me, and there really isn't a whole lot this team could do. I like the Isaac Seumalo move to shore up the offensive line, and I like Kendrick Bourne deepening up the receiver core. It felt like the Cardinals did nothing more with their moves than just make their fans nod their heads in agreement. I'm looking at you, Roy Lopez. The next team down is the Atlanta Falcons. I'm going to put them in the they better nail the draft tier. The most noteworthy signing the Falcons made was the signing of Tua Tagovailoa. After years of concussions, Tua Tagovailoa will now move to Mercedes-Benz Stadium so he can finally experience a functioning dome. I'm just glad he didn't get signed by the Hawks, because then he'd be Hawk Tua. Spit on that thing.
I'm gonna spit on you.
Buy me dinner first. The Falcons did have some noteworthy losses though. They lost Caden Ellis to the Saints, D. Alford to the Jets, Tyler Algier to the Cardinals, and James Pierce Jr. to the Slammer. They had a lot they needed to address, but it isn't a good sign when the biggest contract they gave was the one they gave to a punter. Though to be fair, no one knows the value of a punter quite like a guy who used to coach for the Cleveland Browns. Punts. I've gotten a lot of those comments. And now the Baltimore Ravens. All right, you dirty f***s, let's do this. I am actually going to put you in the lukewarm as tier. The Ravens stunned the football world by trading for Max Crosby, and then they stunned the football world again by going back on that trade just a few days later. The very next day, they signed the wind beneath my sails Trey Hendrickson for a 4-year, $112 million contract, and then just expected the entire world to be okay with it. And then their GM Eric DeCosta was like, oh, we plan to have Max and Trey play together. And I'm like, bruh, with what money? So now it's just Trey Hendrickson, whose main job in Baltimore will be to tell Ravens fans to turn off Family Guy because it's inappropriate. Now the Ravens have Trey and both their first-round picks back. And a whole lot of people around the league are going, hey, what the f*** was that? But genuinely, I am putting the Ravens in the lukewarm as f*** tier. And not because I'm mad about Trey. I'm not. I'm sad, but I'm not mad. I'm not punching the air. But it's because they watched a lot of their players move in free agency to other teams, including 4 of their former players to John Harbaugh's newest job. Tyler Linderbaum went off to Vegas to be the centerpiece of the Mendoza line, and Mike McDaniel took a couple toys out of the Ravens toy box for his new offense with the Chargers. Trey is an unbelievable pass rusher, but he's on the wrong side of 30, and the Ravens lost a lot of players to other teams. That's why I'm putting them in the tier that I did. Buffalo Bills, you're going to the lukewarmest tier as well. Hasn't been crazy eventful for Bills fans. They watched their guard David Edwards go off to the Saints, and their big moves were trading for yet another wide receiver 1 who's really a wide receiver 2 in DJ Moore from the Bears, and they signed Bradley Chubb to a 3-year deal. Yeah, not a lot of overwhelming success in free agency for the Bills. If anything, just be grateful that you're lukewarm and not cold to the point that shirtless fans are shoveling snow out of your seats. Enjoy Geno Stone, you dingbats. Next up is the Carolina Panthers. I'm putting them in the Matthew Broussard tier. G stands for job well done. If your 2 big signings were players I wanted from my own favorite team, I automatically have to give you props. They got Jalen Phillips from the Eagles with the biggest contract any team got this offseason, with a 4-year, $120 million deal, in addition to Devin Lloyd from the Jags, who got a 3-year, $45 million deal. They did watch Rico Dowdle leave for 10-7 land, but they still have Jonathan Brooks lurking on their depth chart and on my dynasty team, so I can't be too worried. Just stay healthy, bud. Not to mention they got a new backup quarterback by replacing Andy Dalton with small Handy Dalton. The Panthers are moving in the right direction. Even if it turns out they overpaid some players, as of now, job well done. The Chicago Bears. You're going to the lukewarm tier. The Bears racked up a lot of U-Haul rewards points. They watched a ton of their former players walk, like Tremaine Edmonds to the Giants, which was a weird way to find out he was a former Baltimore Raven. Elsewhere, Kevin Byard is a Patriots, Nashawn Wright is a Jets, and Olamide Zaccheaus is back with the Falcons. I do like the Kobe Bryant signing because they gave up a lot of pass yards, and I like to support my former Bearcats. They did trade DJ Moore for a 2nd-round pick, and in his place they got America's favorite wide receiver 3, Khalif Raymond. This offseason for the Bears as of now feels like a net gain of 0, and there's a glaring need for a pass rusher still there. I'm lukewarm as of now. My beloved Cincinnati Bengals, also lukewarm. Let's go. The Bengals' goal in free agency was to improve their defensive line after Trey Hendrickson and Joseph Osai left, and, well, they kind of did that. They got Brian Cook from the Chiefs, who will be given all the grace in the world because he is from Cincinnati and he isn't Geno Stone. To bolster their own defensive line, they got edge rusher Boye Mafe from the Seahawks on a 3-year, $60 million deal, and as of now, I'll take it. They also got defensive lineman Jonathan Allen on a 2-year, $28 million deal. And if you don't know, Jonathan Allen was one of the players who was involved in the tackle on Joe Burrow that tore his ACL in his rookie year. And to fix that, the Bengals decided to have Allen go up against Burrow every single day in practice. Because what do modern problems require?
Modern solutions.
There you go. As a Bengals fan, I'm glad we got pieces for the defense, but I wonder if we paid too much. I'm happy I got a bag. I'm not one of those, oh, you're an overpaid millionaire. Beer. But in the end, I'm guessing an extra $5 million a year is what it takes to be associated with this Bengals defense. The Cleveland Browns are going to the they better nail the draft tier. This might be a tough place to put the Browns because I think they've done an objectively okay job. They watched nearly their entire offensive line walk, and they filled 3 of their 5 offensive line spots in free agency with Zion Johnson and 2 dudes named Jenkins, one of which they retained. The Quincy Williams acquisition also kind of deserves some props, especially since JOK might not be A-OK. That said, they still have an absolute gaping hole with their skill position players. Jerry Jeudy has been living on borrowed time as the Cleveland Browns wide receiver 1. They've addressed a few positions, but they badly need to nail it in the draft if they want Todd Monken to last 3 seasons instead of 1 season and some change. The Dallas Cowboys, no cap. Well, of course the Cowboys don't have any money. They have to spend it all on Jerry Jones's lawsuits. Whee! Got his ass. They signed Osa Odigizua to a major contract extension last year, and then this year traded him to the 49ers. For what it's worth, they no longer have a defensive lineman with a weird name whose initials are O-O-O, you've gotta be kidding me. They also signed Rams cornerback Jacoby Durant, who sounds like he came from an NBA name generator. If your defense was that bad, and Jalen Thompson was your one big acquisition, that just screams that you have no money. No cap. The Denver Broncos. The hell's going on out here? You have Bo Nix on a rookie deal, you're finally free from the shackles of the Russell Wilson trade, and what do? You don't sign a single external free agent as of the recording of this video? What the hell, man? What gives? Now, I know the statement, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, very much could apply here, but they watched good defensive tackle John Franklin Myers walk off to the Titans, and they've been asleep at the wheel. Now, I get that they retained J.K. Dobbins and Alex Singleton and a couple other players who I need to stop relying on in fantasy football, but their need for elite skill players on offense is still glaring. So far, the Broncos' free agency period has been mile-high shitty. Detroit Lions. It's been a concerning offseason so far for the Lions. You'd think that Dan Built Ford Tough Campbell would go after every player he could in free agency after being in last place despite having a winning record. Honestly, that's the most Lions ending I've ever seen to a season. Even when they have a winning record, they're still in last place. They did lose a lot of defensive players. Alex Anzalone to the Buccaneers, Roy Lopez to the Cardinals, Amik Robertson to Washington. And in return, they got Christian Ezine? Is he in Detroit yet? Ha! They did trade David Montgomery to the Texans, and in return, they got Isaiah Pacheco from the Chiefs, who runs like Dan Campbell talks. But what really concerns me is the Taylor Decker situation. He was there for 10 years and requested his release, and now he's a free agent, which means he ended his Lions tenure by reporting as eligible one last time. It just concerns me that as good as Penei Sewell and Tate Ratledge are, their line is incomplete as all hell. They have Dan Campbell's endearing energy, but with all the defensive losses and missing pieces on their O-line, they've got a lot of work to do. Now, speaking of teams who sacrificed a lot for their offensive line, let's do a little two for the price of one. Packers, Texans, there you go. The Indianapolis Colts. You are going to the lukewarmest tier. The Colts did make noteworthy in-house moves by giving Alec Pierce and Daniel Jones bags. They worked to solidify their passing attack by making Alec Pierce their bona fide #1 receiver. On the flip side, they did ship off Michael Pittman to the Steelers so he can be a literal pit man. That's not my joke, I'm giving this guy credit. They lost a lot of defensive pieces, which isn't good for a Colts team that already had a shitty defense last year. I like that they got Arden Key to bolster their pass rush and Michael Clemens to bolster their number of personal foul penalties, but I'm very lukewarm about what they've done so far. None of it really excites me, especially in a division where every team is quickly improving. The Jacksonville Jaguars are going to the no-cap tier. The Jags have barely done anything. They did sign Chris Who Gives a Rodriguez, but they did lose a lot of pieces due to being constrained by their middling cap situation. Devin Lloyd went to the Panthers. Travis Etienne went to the Saints. Greg Newsome, Giants. Even with all those players walking, they're still $10 million under the cap. So that's why they get this tier. The Kansas City Chiefs are going to the they better nail the draft tier. I kind of teetered between lukewarm and they better nail the draft tier, but the Chiefs still have a lot of work they need to do, and they have 2 first-round picks. They lost members of their secondary like Jalen Watson and Trent McDuffie to the Rams. I know Trent was traded. And Brian Cook to my boys. They have 2 first-round picks, mainly because the Rams have returned to their 2021-2022 F them picks mantra. And that broke my heart. Even with them going to the NFC West running back store and getting Kenneth Walker and Amari DiMercado, they still badly need to replace the stud members of their secondary. They're picking 9th overall, and a bunch of good cornerbacks are being mocked to where they're selecting. They need to nail this draft to get back to where they were. Before I go any further, if you like what you've seen so far, and if you're new here, click the like button and subscribe to the channel. I got plenty of long-form content coming out, and I'm going to do some random deep dives. I want to do every team's worst head coach, some draft picks, some draft coverage, some mock drafts. We're all so excited for those. But this has been a great season so far. Subscriber count's really going up. I'm really excited. But for now, back to the video. The Las Vegas Raiders. You are going to the hella good, but I don't trust your team yet tier. These boys went on a shopping spree, and how could they not? They had the most cap space in the league coming into free agency and a golden boy QB coming into the NFL. Their free agency class was headlined by Tyler Linderbaum, who got a meaty contract to help Fernando to not get CTE on the first snap of his pro career. They also got Nakobe Dean, Quay Walker, Taron Johnson, and Kwity Paye to make sure their defense wouldn't feel the loss from the Max Crosby trade that ended up not happening. They improved their offensive skill players a little bit by bribing Jalen Naylor with a big contract to bribe him to get away from JJ McCarthy, but they still need a top wide receiver, and Jawan Jennings is still out there. I love what the Raiders have done, and I love what they will continue to do. That said, as of now, I trust this team as far as Connor Cook can throw them. Next up, the LA Chargers, who are going to the lukewarm as tier. The Chargers basically took Mike McDaniel Christmas shopping. They got Keaton Mitchell from the Ravens, and if you've never seen Keaton Mitchell play, Mike McDaniel is about to do some Mike McDaniel-ass shit with this dude. They also signed tight end Charlie Kolar to be the Will Dissly of Tyler Conklin's. They also got a couple of Mike McDaniel's old Dolphins buddies in Cole Strange and Alec Ingold. They did lose a couple of good defensive players in Otedi Zogbanaya and Odafe Owe. So with those defensive departures and their signings on offense, their O budget is now a net zero. I'm lukewarm about these boys right now. The LA Rams. They are going to the G stands for job well done tier. Quit being so good at everything. Getting two great DBs from the Chiefs is nasty work. The Miami Dolphins are going to the no cap tier. The Dolphins got absolutely by the Tua contract. Now he's off to Atlanta to be the second of two early first-round QBs from my hot years to go to a new team on a league minimum deal and compete with the mediocre QB selected in the top 10 of the 2024 NFL Draft. To replace him, they brought in Malik Willis from the Packers. I'm not sure what made former Packers defensive coordinator Jeff Hafley and former Packers vice president of player personnel John Benet Sullivan do that, but that will get them past the Tua extension that is costing them $99.2 million in dead cap money this year. This offseason began with a fire sale. They released Tyreek Hill, they released Bradley Chubb, they released James Daniels, they traded Minkah Fitzpatrick, they cut Alec Ingold, and they let the former kicker and punter go off to the NFC. They were able to get some good, speedy, discounted players like Tutu Atwell and Jalen Tolbert, but so far everything about this offseason screams we're going to see an awful lot of paper bags in the stands in 2026. They're not going to be very good. The Minnesota Vikings are going to the no cap tier. The big story for these fellas was getting Kyler Murray. Kyler wanted to sign with the Vikings so he could compete to start with JJ McCarthy, and because Minneapolis has become real-life Call of Duty. Other than that, they've barely done anything. James Pierre was their most expensive signing, and that was a 2-year, $8.5 million contract. It was a snoozer of a time for the Vikings. And that's no cap. The New England Patriots. You are going to the G stands for job well done tier. These boys did a mighty fine job in free agency. They got solid pieces to assist Drake May, who is still on his rookie deal. Their big signing was signing Romeo Doubs, a player whose balloon helmet is so big, a kid from Colorado is going to hide there so his family can get a reality show. They really did make a lot of major upgrades though. They got Elijah Vera Tucker from the Jets, Draymond Jones from the Ravens, Kevin Byard from the Bears. This philosophy worked well for them last year, and there's no reason why it can't continue to work for them this year. They did lose some decent pieces on defense like Kayvon Chasen, Kairis Tonga, and Jalen Hawkins, but I'm not mad at what they've done to get Drake May help. The New Orleans Saints are going to the G stands for job well done tier. Admittedly, I have a little bit of a soft spot for the Saints right now. They're in a tough situation, but for some reason they've endeared themselves to me. I can't hate them at all. They had to start from essentially nothing and build from there. They got David Edwards from the Bills to help protect Tyler Shuck, Travis Etienne from the Jags, Caden Ellis from the Falcons, and best of all, they got Noah Fant off our hands. They did lose Alontae Taylor to the Titans and Demario Davis to the Jets, but they are really doing a lot better given the circumstances than I thought they would. The New York Giants are going to the lukewarm as tier. The free agency period for the Giants could be boiled down to John Harbaugh hitting up his old friends. They got 4 players who used to play for the Ravens: Isaiah Likely, Jordan Stout, Patrick Ricard, and Ardarius Washington. They did make some good non-Raven signings, like getting Tremaine Edmonds from the Bears and re-signing Jermaine Illuminor, but Brian Dable sent some you-up texts of his own to his old players. Of the 6 players to leave the Giants this offseason, 4 of them became Tennessee Titans: Wan'Dale Robinson, Cordell Flott, Daniel Bellinger, and Austin Schlottman. Even with them getting a Hall of Fame coach in John Harbaugh, I'm meager about the Giants and their offseason until further notice. That said, I have them in the higher portion of this tier. The New York Jets are going to the hella good, but I don't trust your team yet tier. Aaron Glenn was able to be busy in free agency because the NFL Combine showed how well rested he truly is. They got Joseph Osai from the Bengals because you can't commit a late hit personal foul penalty in the playoffs if you never make the playoffs. I was getting there. They lost some offensive pieces, but they did a great job getting veteran leadership for their defense. They brought back old pal Demario Davis. They got Kingsley Enagbare from the Green Bay Packers. They got Dane Belton and Nashawn Wright. Improving a defense that had 0 interceptions last year was paramount. And they did a very good job. Even with them getting all those defensive improvements, what the hell was this? My goodness, what are we doing here? The Jets trading for Geno Smith in this economy? Punch me in the jaw and call me IK Enekpali. The Philadelphia Eagles are going to the no-cap tier. They made a couple good moves like extending Jordan Davis and Dallas Goedert and picking up Reek Woolen, whose name sounds like every Eagles fan's armpits. They did have some major losses on defense, like Jalen Phillips to the Panthers, Nakobe Dean to the Raiders, and Reed Blankenship to the Texans. But they really didn't need to do much to stay atop the NFC East. They didn't have a whole lot of cap space coming into this offseason, and now they have a little bit of a cushion, but their limited amount of transactions puts them in the no-cap tier. The Pittsburgh Steelers are going to the lukewarm as tier. Until further notice, the Steelers will forever be lukewarm. They signed Rico Dowdle, who is the running back equivalent of a 9-8 record. They got Jamel Dean, Jaquan Brisker, Oxford Kama, and Darnell Savage to improve their secondary, and Sebastian Joseph Day, try saying that 5 times fast, to shore up the trenches. With those acceptable moves, in addition to watching players like Isaac Seumalo, Kenneth Gainwell, and Calvin Austin move to middling organizations, they are summoned to their tier of destiny. The San Francisco 49ers are going to the lukewarm as tier. They had a decent amount of cap space and a lot of moves they needed to make. They brought back old boo Dre Greenlaw, which is a good move in itself if he can stay healthy. Big ask for the 49ers. That said, the move that made the most headlines was Mike Evans leaving Tampa Bay for San Francisco. The 49ers brought him in after being impressed by his resume, which included being out for most of last season with an injury. He'll fit in swimmingly. It wasn't super eventful for the 49ers though. They watched Kendrick Bourne sign with the Cardinals, and Jordan Elliott, a player I barely know exists, sign with the Titans, a team that I barely know exists. Other than that, uneventful, lukewarm. The Seattle Seahawks are going to the they better nail the draft tier. Oh, I'm sorry, you didn't get to experience the endorphin rush of watching your team sign a bunch of free agents. It's not like you got to watch your team experience the endorphin rush of winning the Super Bowl. At least you got to retain a bunch of your good players. Their Super Bowl MVP went off to the Chiefs, and 3 of their defensive players found 8-figure contracts elsewhere, including edge rusher Boye Mafe, who I really hope we didn't overpay. But after those departures, and signing Emmanuel Wilson, who I find heavily underrated, I really hope they nail this year's draft. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to the lukewarm as tier. The big story here is that Mike Evans' 12-year career in Tampa has officially come to a close. He's in San Francisco, where his #1 job will be to wave over a trainer every time George Kittle gets hurt. They did make some okay moves, like signing Alex Anzalone. An anal zone jersey would actually make perfect sense considering Todd Bowles' secondary is occasionally a gaping asshole. They also signed Kenneth Gainwell, as his job of taking away valuable carries from an actually good running back will continue on his 3rd consecutive team. But most importantly, they got Kroger brand Baker Mayfield to back up Baker Mayfield. Have fun with that one. I'll miss you, 2023 Jake Browning. The Tennessee Titans are going to the hella good, but I don't trust your team yet tier. Those you up texts that John Harbaugh sent to his former Ravens players? Brian Daboll did exactly that with his former Giants players. The Titans got busy, and they still have the most cap space of any team in the NFL. They got 3 yards per catch merchant Wan'Dale Robinson. They got a couple of good cornerbacks. They got the defensive tackle I wanted for the Bengals. They launched L'Jarius Sneed into the L'Jarius Sun. They did lose some pieces like Chigoziem Okonkwo, whose floor and ceiling are the exact same, but they worked hard, went on a shopping spree, and still have a lot of money to play with. I don't trust the Titans yet, but they are headed in the right direction. They did exactly what the Patriots did with Drake May last offseason. Also, f*** off with the Jeffrey Simmons trade rumors. He's not going anywhere. And finally, the Washington Commanders are going to the G stands for job well done tier. I'm not sure I trust trust the Commanders right now, but they've earned a little bit of goodwill after being cautious with Jaden Daniels. They made some really good moves to shore up that awful defense, like getting Odafe Owe from the opposite coast, Leo Chenal from the Chiefs, Amik Robertson from the Lions, Caleb Chasen from the Patriots, and they retained a superstar for their offensive line. No, seriously, they retained Chris Paul. It'd be so funny if they also got Michael Jordan from the Bucs. You know, Chris Paul and Michael Jordan. It would make history as the first ever offensive line that could successfully convert an alley-oop. They got busy, and I like the Commanders' defense's chances to improve this season, especially since the bar was oh so low from last season. They did let Chris Rodriguez walk, but I'm glad they didn't replace one mediocre running back with two mediocre running backs. Oh, you've gotta be kidding me. Well, that'll do it for this video. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you like this video, you can click the like button. And if you're new here, subscribe to the channel. I got the sexiest sports content on the internet. But for now, stay tuned for more sports content that you didn't ask for.